Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is the topic of, are white people evil? So when it comes to what the answer to this topic is, the simple answer to the question is no. I don't believe white people are evil. And the reason why I don't believe white people are evil, for that matter, is that I just believe most of the evil things that they have done throughout history, especially during the age of exploration, is an example of what happens when you use propaganda to brainwash people to think a certain way. Now, of course, something I also want to mention related to this topic, of course, is that this does not justify the things that they did in the past, because obviously the things their ancestors did, and some of them, even to this day, are doing based off of that information, is wrong and is not justifiable. What I am just trying to get into this video is explaining this topic in depth, so you can of course understand, of course, the answer to this question, because we live in a world where who people are based on genetics and so on and so forth. And when it comes to the question of genetics, or white people genetically being predisposed to be evil, that is definitely not something that is true. And the reason why it is not true, because for obvious reasons, like I was getting at before, because information can make people see and act in a certain particular way, for that matter, is that you have to look at history to obviously understand that the way white people see people of other races and so on and so forth has been different throughout history, whether it could be the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, or even medieval Europe. The way they saw people of other races before, of course, the age of exploration is, of course, as we all know, at least when you look at history books, where people actually put effort into it, is different. You know, like the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, they would speak very highly of people of different races. And if anything, Europeans at the time, during the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans, were more racist towards other Europeans, if anything. And during the medieval times, they did speak highly of some Arabs, and other groups of people out there, okay? So this whole idea that they were all predisposed to be racist and hate racist people, I mean, they're predisposed to be racist based on genetics, is simply untrue, in honesty. For that matter, okay? It's not true. This idea that just based on genetics, they're already predisposed to be an evil group of people is not true. Like I was saying before, just so you get the point. Because, as I was saying, all that stuff came later on through information. And this information, of course, is, like I was kind of getting at a bit before, is propaganda. Because in their society, during the age of exploration, particularly when African slavery was taken off, okay, they used to put out information everywhere degrading black people. They used to show images seeing black people in a degraded way for both Europe and eventually the colonies that they had overseas in the New World. They used to do things to make us look bad and degraded, in all honesty, and used to spread information all the time, saying that, oh, you guys are this, you guys are that, you guys are this, you guys are that, and just spreading lies that just made people believe that we were someone that we were not. Because even though the printing press came much towards the end of the age of exploration, for that matter, one thing is simply true, though, regardless, is that there still were ways people could communicate with each other. There used to be these people who would stand in the middle of the street and speak information through a piece of paper. And, and when they would do that to a huge group of people or audience, they, of course, were spreading information. So, obviously, they could have done that when discussing black people, and of course word of mouth was really big back then, and some people would sail to the other parts of the world and spread misinformation about us when people would talk to each other all the time back then. Word of mouth was really big back then. People would really communicate a lot to each other through words back then. And those are things that, of course, through information, propaganda, you can say, ultimately contributed to, of course, the evils that were committed during slavery, because everyone was taught to see the world a certain way. Not to mention, obviously, something else as well to add to that is that when it comes to the topic, of course, of of that particular subject, that all that propaganda, for that matter, eventually, of course, at some point, people are going to start believing it. It's common sense, especially when you're not presented with a different stream of information to counteract it. And back then, people who actually used to go around in the 1700s and even further on, spreading information saying, oh, you blacks are not this, you guys are not that, were killed. Usually killed by people in positions of power, a lot of them being slave owners. Not all the Europeans believed it, but the ones who obviously were not believers of it and did something about it usually were killed and attacked all the time. So to think that all of them are evil, especially the ones who fought for us during segregation much later on in history and so on and so forth, to think that all of them are evil is simply false. I don't believe it is true. You never know in the end of the day, but most likely, I don't believe all of them are evil, to answer your question. So if there's a message to get across for this video, okay, especially when it comes to relating to black people, because obviously black people suffer the most for racism. So when it comes down to the question of are white people evil, we would be the perfect ones to, of course, use as an example, for that matter. The simple answer to that question is that the message for this video is that we as black people need to understand that we are going to have to start doing better. Because even though in the end of the day, I don't get it twisted, I know white people in the past have sabotaged us when we were actually trying to succeed. A lot of white people did do that stuff, okay? But on the real though, we have to understand, to put it bluntly, that for us to succeed as a community of people, especially in this modern world we live in, we are gonna have to start doing better, stop the gang shit, in the suburbs specifically is what I'm referring to, the wannabe thug shit, doing better jobs when it comes to, doing the work that we do instead of just doing God knows what, just doing the right things that we're supposed to do. And in the end of the day, I can guarantee you, the propaganda machine that, as I was referring to later on in the video, or I should say earlier, for that matter, would not really work on people anymore, on white people to be more specific. So the truth of the matter is we're going to have to, as a black community, really stop doing that. The things that we're doing for that matter, because propaganda is very powerful and it really can make people become evil. So the truth of the matter is that is what I truly believe should be done in order for us, of course, to succeed, for obvious reasons. Because of course, if we stop doing these things, then of course they can't say the things they say about us. Because in the end of the day, the truth of the matter is, as I was getting at before, propaganda is very powerful. Not just propaganda is very powerful. White people historically have been brainwashed to see us a certain way. So if we don't do those things, then they can't see us that way. Okay? And it's not a case about trying to impress them. It's more a case of course, making sure that we can live the best quality of life instead of minding your own business, walking down the street and having a random cop just stop you and ask you stupid fucking questions. So that is the truth of the matter. And that is, in general, when it comes to, of course, us living a better life, because we would, of course, be able to live a better life. Of course, it's not racism, or in other words, being able to live a better life because there's no racism. Obviously, better behavior is what's required. So anyway, this is my video. This is all I have to say, and simply put it, if you like this video and videos like this, remember to thumbs this video up and hit the subscribe button. And this is all I have to say, and simply put it on out. So bye.